What's up, everybody? I'm Zach, and I'm coming at you with fire and ferment. And today, we're gonna be making brisket. Stick around. So I bought a brisket, a 15-pound choice packer brisket I grabbed at my local food mart. Make sure you pick one up with a thicker flat. Throw it in the freezer for 30 minutes or so to let it firm up, which makes for an easier trim. Pull it out of its jammies and get to work on it. Our main purpose in trimming is to take down parts of the meat that are thin and flappy and will likely burn. We also want to remove any nasty fat globs that won't render and make the brisket aerodynamic so the smoke can flow smoothly over the meat. Focus first on removing as much of the decal fat as you can that separates the point and the flat, as well as trimming off any silver skin or coarse fat on the meat side. This decal fat won't render and will just end up being a big glob that you'll trim off anyway, so you may as well just build some bark over it where it'll render out and gain layers of flavor. Moving on, we'll take down the excess point muscle on the meat side so the brisket will lay flat and cook more evenly. Make sure you separate your meat and fat trimmings. We will be using both of these later. Look for any flappy parts on the point and work on trimming these down so it's rounded, smooth, and aerodynamic. Trim down the sides to square it off. Next, flip it over to the fat side and identify the location where the point meets the flat. You'll find a big glob of fat here that we need to take out. Take your knife and go straight down and just scoop it on out. Most briskets will have a big flap on the point side called the mohawk that you'll want to take down. This one's rinky-dink, so we don't have that much to do here. I then like to demarcate my next cut with the back of my knife with the ultimate goal to trim the thinner parts of the flat down so they don't burn. Go straight down at a 90-degree angle and square this off. This will help you see how thick your top fat is. Now, trim down all of the excess top fat. Our goal is to leave a 1/4 inch of fat, which should render nicely. If you get a little thin and start seeing meat poking through, it's going to be fine. Just keep going. Now, we will round out the corners so it's more aerodynamic like I'm doing here. Make sure you take your time with this, as any sharp corner edges will grab your knife and shred the meat when it comes time to slice the final product. Your goal is to make it as aerodynamic as a frisbee. Then, replace all your frisbees with trimmed briskets. Dogs everywhere approve of this message. Flip it back to the other side and make sure things look okay and make any further trims as needed if anything flappy or thin needs removed. Keep the meat you've trimmed for a burger or sausage grind, and we'll use the fat later on in the cook.
Let's go build a fire.
Alright guys, same principles apply each time we fire up the pit. Get a bed of charcoal lit and place your splits in a lattice formation. We're going to be burning post oak today. Man, I just love this Belfab custom offset smoker. This thing absolutely just sips on wood. If you're in the market for a good custom offset smoker, check out Craig Bell at Bell Fabrications. This video is brought to you by our sponsor, Woodchuck Firewood. Woodchuck has all kinds of different woods. He's based out of Valley Center, Kansas, but he ships his wood all over the country. If you're on the lookout for wood splits that you need for your barbecue, fire pit, or fireplace, Woodchuck Firewood is your guy. Look him up online and contact him if you want to place an order, and he'll take good care of you. Get your smoker temp up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Throw in 4 heaping scoops of Wagyu beef tallow into a small pan. Put that in as well as a water pan. I'm a big fan of making my own rubs. We're gonna go in with 8 parts 16 mesh black pepper, 3 parts Lowry's, 3 parts diamond crystal kosher salt, and 1 part granulated garlic. Spray the brisket with warm water to use as a binder. Make sure you spray both sides. Go ahead and toss your rub on starting meat side and then flip over and get the fat cap last. It's called a rub, but don't rub it in. Pat it down instead. Make sure you get the sides. Alright, our cooker is at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Put the brisket on fat cap facing up with the point toward the fire. We'll leave it on for 4 hours. And remember, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. It's now been 4 hours, so this is our first check-in. We're looking for a deep red color and we want the bark to begin setting. I threw another brisket on that I'll treat differently and use for a future video. We will now build our fire up a bit more to get our temp to 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember the fat we trimmed off and saved? Let's start adding small amounts of this fat to the fire so we can aerosolize the fat compounds as they burn. Think about the smell of burgers on a charcoal grill. We want to put those same flavor compounds onto our brisket. We're looking to build layers of flavor here, so we're pulling out all the stops. At this stage, I like to spray the smoker with canola oil. The canola oil hits that hot metal and goes through a process called polymerization, where it forms a protective barrier on the outside to help ward off rust. It's a good idea to do this each time you cook. Check back in at the 6-hour mark and you should start seeing even better bark, better color, and the early stages of fat render. At 6 hours in, start building up your fire even more and crank that temp to 250 to finish off the cook and fully render the fat. Take off the tallow and set it down at room temperature so it semi-solidifies. At 8 hours in, you'll start thinking it's about ready to wrap. The key factor to look for when determining timing on wrapping is fat render. We're not quite there yet, but we'll get our butcher paper ready for our next step. You want your finger to basically sink into the fat cap like it would into Jell-O. We are now ready to wrap. Layer your semi-solid smoked tallow down onto the paper. Place the brisket lean side down directly onto the tallow. Fold the edges of the paper tight over the brisket. Wrap once, fat side is now down. Wrap again, fat side is now up. Keep your wrapping tight and try to hug the corners of your brisket. Tuck in the paper under the brisket so it's easy to move. Place the brisket back on the pit, fat side up and flat facing toward the fire. Probe test with your instant read thermometer every 15 minutes till it feels right. Should be the same level of resistance as a hot knife through butter. Be patient here, don't rush it. Take it off when you reach that point. This is now where internal temp becomes important. Let it rest on the counter until it has cooled to 160 degrees. This next step is absolutely paramount. You want to hold your brisket for as long as you can at about 150 to 160. What I've found that works best is a warming oven, and we'll plan on keeping it in there, wrapped for 12 to 17 hours. I promise this makes for a better product and is worth the cost. Now go to bed. Good morning, guys. I hope you slept well because you got a big day ahead of you. When it's time to serve, pull the brisket out of the warmer and set it on the cutting board. Unwrap it and set it down fat side up. Bisect the point and the flat. Start slicing the flat like so, following the same pattern as you want to slice across the grain for optimum texture and tenderness. The points grain is perpendicular to the flat, so rotate the point 90 degrees, and begin slicing that a little thicker than the flat. You can save the ends of this point for little bite-sized burnt ends, which in my opinion is the best part. Pro tip: eat the burnt ends yourself straight off the cutting board, then you'll have enough energy to serve others. You've come this far. You need this. You deserve it, and you've earned it.
That's how we make brisket at Fire and Ferment. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. I love you guys, and stick around.